And welcome everybody to Off of the Helmets. It's Friday afternoon, and we've got lots of Dallas Cowboys football to talk about. Not exactly what you had in mind, because a divisional round loss to the 49ers has many of you distraught, feeling like we're in the same place we've been in for the last 26 years. The Cowboys fall in San Francisco 19-12 to a team that was frankly better than them. But that game was there to be had, and I know why you're pissed, because you can break it down as simple as this. Dak threw 2 interceptions that the other team caught. Purdy threw 2 interceptions that our team didn't catch. Honestly, the difference in the game. 2 years in a row, and the Cowboys are a top 10 team. How do they get to that championship level? Because I think all of us put our eyes on that game and said, definitely a top 8 team, maybe a top 6 or 7 team, but not a top 4 team. Not yet. Not at that elite level where they make less mistakes. They have more great players. Not yet. So let's talk about all that, break this Cowboy thing down, plus coaches, plus free agency, plus draft. All of it's coming up right now. So much to do. So a divisional championship game for Cowboys fans in San Francisco, coming off one of the best performances of the season and maybe in the last couple of years, the wonderful victory in Tampa. Now, Tampa wasn't great, but the Cowboys were more than ready, took advantage of everything that Tampa could and could not do. And there were ghosts and demons to exercise in that game, and you know that. Tom Brady was 7-0. You can't beat Tom Brady. Well, now he's 0-1 against the Cowboys in the playoffs, by the way. You can't beat that defensive front that's just too physical. You won't be able to run against them. You did. You did. You won't be able to get wide receivers open. Those cornerbacks will be squatting. Pressure on Dak will have his brain sped up, and he'll make too many mistakes. He didn't, and they didn't get a lot of pressure on him. So that was huge. That was really huge, and led me to believe maybe that was for this team, this organization, and that quarterback and that offensive coordinator. We can keep going down the line. The get over the hump game. Okay, we've been saying it. We've been talking it. We're a close-knit group. We have good coaches. But now we truly believe it because we made it happen. We thumped Tampa in Tampa. Now we're in a place we haven't been in a long time, a divisional round game against an opponent we're very familiar with. They knocked the Cowboys out last year. This game wasn't that. So on to San Francisco. And really all that I was personally worried about for this team was the Cowboys passing the physical test, okay? Because San Francisco is probably the most physical team in all of football. And I'll give you a statistic to back that up. You may have heard this, but I just found this. The 49ers opponents this year, after playing the 49ers, so they played San Francisco, home or away, it doesn't make any difference. We played San Francisco. We're 0-15 the following week. Now, I'm not going to go through their schedule, but I want to tell you, they played some good teams. These were not all cupcake teams that played San Francisco, win or lose, and then absolutely lost the next week. It's a phenomenal statistic. San Francisco is so physical at the point of attack on defense and on offense and in the secondary and the way they run the football, almost every way, and the way they catch the football. Deebo Samuel attacks people. They are so physical that in every game after someone played San Francisco this year, now there was a bye week and et cetera, those teams were 0-15. 0-15. Were the Cowboys ready? I sat down in front of the TV and I thought, man, I hope they're ready. I hope the physicality, as Rick Carlisle used to say, the Mavericks, the disposition of this team is such that they're ready to tackle. They're ready to get in every gap. They're ready to not tackle running backs by the ankle, but hit them square on. They were ready. The Cowboys defense came out and held San Francisco to 8 total plays in their first 2 drives. Cowboys went 3 and out a couple of times as well, but Dak got San Francisco started. With a bad interception at the Cowboys 25. The D immediately threw up a wall, and San Francisco was 3 and out, and it was 3-0 San Francisco. Absolute best case scenario after a terrible interception where I don't know what he sees. Gallup runs a route, sort of quits on the route because it looks like he thinks Dak is going to run. And of course, Gallup's thinking he sees the man standing in front of me, doesn't he? No, but the defense steps up. Tied at 6 when Dak forces another pass. And I don't want to jump past this because the Cowboys did go on a 15-play, 81-yard drive where Dak was very good. I think he was 7 for 7 on the drive. He throws a touchdown to Schultz, and everything's going to be great. Cowboys 6-3 because an old issue, not that old, crops up again as Brett Maher gets his extra point blocked. It was blocked by the left defensive end, who was probably 5 yards wide of the left upright. Nobody was more shocked that he blocked an extra point than the man who blocked it with half his hand and half his head. That ball hit him like a heat-seeking missile and was never going to be good. So now here we are. What couldn't happen is happening. You didn't do enough to address the Brett Maher situation. You brought in a guy that apparently had kicked for 3 or 4 games with San Francisco 3 years ago, and that was your only qualifying offer, and you brought him in, and he wasn't very good at the Star in the 2 days leading up, coming out for Wednesday and Thursday, so it was an easy choice. We believe in Maher. Plus, McCarthy had said, I had seen this in Green Bay. I know what to say to him. We've had the right conversations. We believe in Maher. Maher didn't believe in Maher, and he couldn't make the first extra point, which completely affected the play calling and the decision making of the Dallas Cowboys for the entire first half. Completely. Okay. And so it's Cowboys 6-3. Dak throws another interception now in the Cowboys red zone because he's trying to force the ball to CD and 2 people are crashing down, squeezing him. The ball gets tipped in the air and it gets intercepted, and you're giving up points. Now, instead of it being at least 9-3 Cowboys and maybe 12, let's just say miss another extra point, 12-3 Cowboys, a la what happened in Tampa, it's all of a sudden now 6-6. And then it's 9-6 San Francisco at halftime. And again, it's okay, because we have established what you and I all wanted to see in at least one manner, and that is this defense is playing badass. Christian McCaffrey hadn't done a damn thing. Deebo Samuel hadn't done a damn thing. They have not been out-physicaled. 6 of the 9 points the Cowboys defense gave up were gift wrap to them. It was a miracle they held them to 6. So we're good. Make adjustments at halftime, pull Dak's head firmly out of his ass, and let's get this thing going. And the second half quickly gets to where the Cowboys need it to be, because the Cowboys finally force a turnover in special teams, and they get the ball, and they're right at the 21-yard line of San Francisco or something, okay? And the first thing they do is throw a pass, and they throw another pass, and they throw another pass, because they've already given up on the running game because Pollard got hurt in the second half. So Pollard got hurt, then Dak threw an interception. Now Pollard is out in the second half, and they aren't even going to bother to run the ball. Doesn't make any sense to me. Where the fuck is Malik Davis? To be honest with you, I'm not sure Malik Davis was the answer to anything, but I do know this. I've watched him all year, same as you have and same as the coaches have. He averages 4.3 yards per carry. He's been effective. He doesn't fumble, and he runs hard. And we've all seen games where the backup running back comes in who hasn't played a lot, and he's got this fresh body and these fresh legs, and he pounds the opposing defense. He gives them something they weren't thinking was coming, because they didn't think Malik Davis was going to play. And they know Zeke's gotten slower by the minute from week to week as these last 6 weeks go on. But Malik Davis would have been somebody I would have stuck into what I know is going to be a low-scoring game and said, let's see. Let's see if Malik Davis is unafraid, is quicker through the holes than certainly Zeke would be, and can have any impact on this game. Malik Davis got 0 carries. Now, we're going to get back to the head coach and the offensive coordinator. 0 carries makes 0 sense to me. A young, fresh-bodied dude who has proven he's capable when given opportunities has in some manner excelled also at picking up blitzes, and Malik Davis doesn't exist on this team for the second half of this football game because we're just fucking not going to run the ball. Doesn't make any sense. That fumble the special teams got for your results in a 3-and-out pass, and they kick a field goal. Okay. Maher makes a 25-yard field goal. Check. That may have overcome a little bit of a hump, but the truth is it doesn't take away, as Jerry said after the game, well, we were exonerated. The coaches were exonerated by Maher making 2 field goals in the second half. The fuck they were. He got the first extra point blocked by a helmet of a guy 10 yards to the left of the goalpost, and it affected what the Cowboys did play calling wise, and it led them to led Dak to trying to force a ball into a situation where he shouldn't have. An interception happens and points come off the board. Nobody was exonerated. You should have brought in 15 kickers, I don't care what their names were, and had them all in the Star when you got off the airplane from Tampa and said, this is not going to affect our ability to go to a Super Bowl. We're not having it. Somebody would have kicked the ball impressively, and you could have made a change. I don't care if you're loyal or you love Maher. I love him too. But the bottom line is you wouldn't have had to cut him. You play with one less player and pay Maher. I don't give a shit. Give him a ring. I don't care. Even bring him back the next week if he has a great practice. But you can't go to San Francisco with a kicker who doesn't believe in himself and then have him prove it 5 minutes into the game. You're screwed. It's going to be a low-scoring game. Every point is going to be of value. Second half, 9-9. San Francisco finally, later in the game, begins to exert its will a little bit. Time of possession ends up about +6 for San Francisco. The pounding that they do with their blockers, their defenders, and their running backs, and that damn wide receiver takes its toll. San Francisco goes 91 yards and takes the lead 16-9. But I don't want to bury the lead. In this drive, the Cowboys then had two iffy holding penalties against them that kept the drive alive. And then the thing that I didn't think could ever happen, Diggs has a ball hit him in the stomach for an interception that could have turned this game. It was 9-9. Could have turned this game. Both arms, both hands, the ball gets all the way to his stomach like he was 8 years old, goes right through his arms and hits the ground. There is zero chance last year that Trayvon Diggs would have dropped that ball. The ball found him last year, and if he was within 5 yards of it, he caught it, whether it was with one hand, with his head, with his foot. It didn't make any difference. Any ball in Diggs's area code, he caught. This was a catch that 12-year-olds and under would have made 100 out of 100 times. Can't explain it. I don't know where Diggs was on this day because it came up in this drive as well. Diggs made a business decision with Kittle going down the middle of the field on a busted play, tipping the ball. By the way, this play probably shouldn't have been allowed. Where Kittle was lined up, he was not an eligible receiver. He drifted to the middle of the field. A defensive tackle was standing there with him and tried to run with him, and he goes down the field. He tips this ball 15 times. The missile coming across in front of Kittle that could have done anything to dislodge this ball while he bobbles it, swings and misses. Totally swings and misses. Can't make contact. Are you kidding? Can't make any contact. Can't stand up and sacrifice an arm by knocking the ball out. Certainly Kittle's way too big for you, so you wouldn't want to hit him heads up. I don't get it. And Diggs was terrible in this game, and he was just above average this year. And the only reason it pisses me off is he's fucking good. So you're making a business decision in a game that everyone knew was going to be about physicality. San Francisco's never backing off from physicality at any point in this game on any place in the field. And if there was ever a chance, now you probably would have had to be careful a little bit about a defenseless receiver, but screw that. You cannot let him bobble that ball 15 yards down the field 5, 6, 7 times and be the player that is the heat-seeking missile that can, one manner or another, hands first, I don't care how you do it, dislodge the football. You can't swing and miss. It's a joke. So literally a business decision, literally a ball through his hands, both hands and into his stomach that he drops, and the Cowboys add 2 penalties to it, and that is a 10-play, 91-yard drive that, for all intents and purposes, ends this game. A 7-point lead for San Francisco, mid-fourth, felt insurmountable because we'd also been watching Dak Prescott, and his brain is going fast. Everything that didn't happen in Tampa is happening in San Francisco. They're moving him around. They're speeding him up. He's walking forward in the sacks. He's putting himself in terrible positions to see the field. You can literally, I believe, feel his brain going faster. Both the interceptions were inexplicable. I mean, we've seen this. This is part of it. This is part of what you get with Dak, and why I always said Dak can't be really, really good. I'm not even going to say great unless the running game is solid. The running game gives the opportunity for the defense just to back off just a little bit and stay in more traditional sets. He knows those sets. He sees those. He reads those defenses better. He gets clearer looks at his wide receivers, and he can then be very good. In this game, he was not. 16-9. So with 3:05 left in the game, back, forth, nothing has happened. Still 16-9. Here it comes. The defining Dak Prescott moment, a drive to tie the game, and I actually had it in my head, to be honest with you, that if they went down and scored a touchdown, and it was 30, 40 seconds left in the game, the Cowboys would go for 2. I don't know that I'm right. No one asked that question. You wouldn't have asked that question with the way things turned out, but I had that feeling. I had the feeling, not because of Maher, because he's now kicked, but because you're on the road and you have a great play saved, which we saw a couple of great plays saved for going forward on 4th down in Tampa. So they have great plays saved that they're going to like against this team. It happens in every game. We've got 2 plays that, based on what this team does, we know when we need them at the most dire moments are close to gold. Okay? That was the feeling I had. Drive down the field, make it your career defining moment and drive. Dak, however you got to do it. Dink, dink, dink. Run a couple of times for 5 yards. Keep drives alive like we see all the best quarterbacks in the NFL do. Name me a quarterback that you think is a great quarterback that would have gone 3 and fucking out with 3:05 left to go, 2 timeouts, a 2-minute warning. That was the drive. That was the last drive. This is it. We're going down and either going to tie the game or go for 2 and win the game. This is it. There isn't in anybody's mind, and shouldn't be, well, if we go 3 and out, we can punt, and we got 2 timeouts and a 2-minute warning, and maybe we can get it back. Maybe you think that way a little bit when you need a field goal, not when you need a touchdown. This was the drive for the coaching staff, for the offensive coordinator, for the guys running the routes, for the men up front blocking, although they didn't need to run block because you're never going to fucking run. 3:05 left. This was the drive. This was not just Dak's defining drive. This was this team's defining drive. Get this game tied, maybe win it there, maybe win it in overtime, and do something you haven't done since 1995. Go to a championship game. And the thud was heard everywhere. It was as if an 800-pound person fell to the ground, and it made the loudest noise in the world. 3 and out. Incomplete, sack, we got a punt. Okay. Ball game. So you can be pissed if you want to at they got the ball back with 45 seconds and Schultz didn't get his feet in bounds. Those weren't the defining plays of this game. The defining plays of this game were Dak's interceptions, the Cowboys' inability to catch 2 interceptions, because Deron Bland made a great play defensively, recovering in the end zone, and he got there so early on a Purdy pass that he jumped in the air and the ball hit him in both hands. So great play, great recovery. You saved the touchdown. But the bottom line is, Deron Bland, you led the team in interceptions. Catch the fucking ball. Catch the ball. So all of our narratives initially was, well, Purdy didn't turn it over. The difference between these two quarterbacks was not much. Purdy wasn't great by any means. He was certainly ruffled by the Cowboys' defensive pressure, by getting hit, by getting flushed out. He was no doubt ruffled, and he actually threw 2 interceptions. We just didn't catch any. 19-12, 49ers win, and I would still submit the better team won. So on to Philly for the 49ers in a game with the 2 best teams in the NFC, to be honest with you, Philadelphia and San Francisco. 2 p.m. on Sunday. They are the 2 best teams. The rest of the teams that made the playoffs and that are a threat in the NFC, unfortunately, almost all of them in the NFC East. Dallas, the New York Giants, and certainly I expect Washington to bounce back if they can do anything about their quarterback position. They tend to play close physical games, and they tend to be a good NFC East team. Seattle made the playoffs, Minnesota made the playoffs, and Tampa made the playoffs. There might be some others that flip around, but the bottom line is what you're going to have to deal with next year is your own division being really, really good, given health. And the fact that Philadelphia is still going to be better than you. I think they have the 10th pick in this draft. So they've done everything right. This is probably a year early that this came about for Philadelphia, for them to get this good and play this well and Hurts be this good. It's probably a year early, but they're set up in next year's draft. The Cowboys picked 26th. So you're probably not going to win the NFC East next year either. You're going to have to go through the same thing. Road playoff games, et cetera, et cetera. Listen, when it comes down to playoffs and these teams are the best teams, I swear to you, the road doesn't sway shit. These are great teams. And the teams that make the least amount of mistakes, that have the most good players and that play the best will win in all these games. And it doesn't make any difference where you're at. So here's what we have for coaching news. Kellen Moore has not been fired. I believe he hasn't been fired, 1, because they like him, and 2, because he was in the running, seriously in the running, for the Carolina coaching job. I thought for all the world 3 days ago he was going to get that job, but he didn't. So the Cowboys weren't firing their offensive coordinator that they like in the midst of interviewing for a head coaching job. Just wouldn't look good, and they didn't have to. I think Kellen Moore is going to be fired. When asked about this, Mike McCarthy said, I'm not going to do this person by person by person. It's been a painful week. I get all that. But I think it would have been very easy to say, Kellen's coming back. He didn't say that. So they're going to have a conversation. We'll get to this in a minute. But I believe Kellen Moore is gone. Several other coaches that you probably don't know all that well are gone. Surprisingly, Skip Peets, the running back coach, is gone. I thought the running game was pretty good. I thought both running backs were pretty good. Zeke got retired late, which we knew was going to happen, but he had 10 or 11 touchdowns. He was effective enough, and he's a great presence on the team. This Pollard's breakout season, over 1,300 total yards, and I think 10 touchdowns. It was a hell of a season. So I don't know where Skip Peets is going. I don't know why that happened. Dan Quinn is going to stay, and that is the big news, which you have probably heard by now, in the running potentially for at least 2 NFL head coaching jobs, and told all of us when he got here 2 years ago, I want to be an NFL head coach again. My wife and I and my family are still stinging from being fired in Atlanta, still stinging from the big Tom Brady comeback in the Super Bowl in a game we had, and I want to rectify that and go back and try again. Totally respect it. And with what he's done with his defense, he was going to get a job. Instead, he pulls out, and I don't know why. I'm certain Jerry had a similar conversation this year that he had last year, which is, I'll overpay the shit out of you. I'll pay you almost Mike McCarthy head coach money. We want you here, and we're this close, and you're a huge part of it. Dan Quinn's personality and that defense has everyone that plays for him thrilled to be playing with him. He gives everyone an opportunity to make plays. Every game, there's 16 or 17 people who have played in the game. Only 11 play on the field at a time, hopefully. So 7 other guys are getting in and out of these games and getting reps and playing and having a chance to play and feel a part of this team and make more money and ascend in the NFL. And they love him. So he and Mike McCarthy, in my opinion, are a fantastic team. They are both really wonderful men who resonate with these players that are on this team. They really do. I firmly believe that. 24 wins in the last 2 years. You can push it aside if you want to, but only 2 other teams did it. The Chiefs had 25, and maybe Buffalo had 24 as well. That's it in the entire NFL. 24 wins in the last 2 years is damn impressive. And by the way, it's the first time since 06-07 that this Cowboys team has been to the playoffs in back-to-back years. So you want to keep saying it's the same as it's been for 26 years. It's not. What you have here is a quarterback problem. That's what you have to overcome. And he's not a bad quarterback. He's just not a great quarterback. So now the coaching level has to go up. You have to have some sort of system similar to what San Francisco does, where you are more physical, you run the ball more often, and you make it easy on the quarterback. One more thing on Kellen Moore. There isn't a system here in Dallas offensively for Dak to fall back on to know exactly where the pieces are at all time. There is a series of however many plays. I don't know, 500, 600 plays. And when they get on a roll, the two of them have a chemistry and a like mind, and it works great, like it did in Tampa, like it did in Minnesota, et cetera, et cetera. We've seen it plenty of times because we know Dak's numbers this year are gaudy. 34 points a game. The Cowboys, when he was quarterbacking, scored 4.2 points more than the next highest team, which was Kansas City. That's a ton. 4 more. I mean, this offense at times was phenomenal, statistically phenomenal. They were at the top of the charts in converting third downs. That's of the utmost importance. They were great in converting red zone opportunities into points and touchdowns. That's of the utmost importance. There were so many good things. But the bottom line is here, there is a combination of a quarterback problem and an offensive coordinator problem. And I cannot tell you that I know how much input Mike McCarthy has on these games. I think it's a lot, but I think when they run out to the field, it is Kellen Moore's call. I don't think Mike calls any plays. I don't think he overrides anything. I think he lets his coach coach. I think the Cowboys felt like they wanted Mike to be a walk-around coach so he could affect lots of things and have his fingers on everything, but trust that his coaches are doing their job. That's what I believe happens with Kellen Moore. We'll get back to that in a minute. So what would help Dak? A different offense, a different designed offense. I'm good with that, but that's a simple answer. What else? A new offensive coordinator, or maybe just Mike McCarthy calling the plays. Because if Mike McCarthy calls the plays, I promise you, there will be more running plays. There will be more running plays. The best part of this season was when Mike McCarthy took a heavy hand after week number 1 and went to Dan Quinn and said, we're leading with you. This is a defense-first operation. We'll run it second, we'll punt it third, and we'll throw it only when we have to and only in positive situations. We'll throw it on 2nd and 1. We'll throw it where we can protect Cooper Rush. And they went on a 4-game winning streak, and they beat a couple of really good teams, and they saved the season. But once Dak got back and proved that he was healthy after 2 or 3 games, I think everything went back to Kellen Moore, and statistically this thing was great, but you could see the clunkiness of it. You could see that there are going to be drives that are imperative, that you move the chains, that you get going, that will just clunk, just like this drive did in the divisional game with 3:05 left, 2 timeouts and a 2-minute warning. Incomplete, sack, punt. Bullshit. Someone fix it. The other question I have is the quarterback coach is Doug Nussmeier, played in this league for 4 or 5 teams and played in the CFL, I think. So he knows the quarterback position. But there's something about when you watch Dak Prescott where he still doesn't quite get it with what he's looking at. So who is the guru that makes this simpler every day for Dak Prescott? I think the anecdote is run more, less passes, make it more of a run-first offense where play-action passes, his favorite thing, are more readily available. Clearer looks at wide receivers. But maybe it is a different quarterback coach. Maybe it's just Mike McCarthy taking over. They'll figure it out. Draft. We're going to get to all of this next Wednesday and Friday again. But in the draft, I implore all of you to think this way. Don't draft a running back at 26, right? The mocks came out already, and you're going to draft Bijan Robinson from Texas. First of all, it's just too Cowboys, to Jones, to Felix Jones, it's to Jerry Jones. It's yuck. And Bijan Robinson, by the way, ain't making it to 26. Probably top 10 to 15 he gets picked. Good God, do not move up and choose Bijan Robinson. We've already established first-round running backs are not a necessity, and you get them for 5 years. So the truth is they never get another contract. Pick a running back in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. Pick 2 of them if you want to. I don't give a shit. But what you do at pick 26 is a cornerback or another linebacker, if you're not re-signing Van Der Esch, or a defensive tackle, or another pass rusher. I don't care. But this defense is really the coolest unit on this team. They're keeping most of them. And if you can find another person, it's easy to say, with the impact of Micah Parsons, you won't. But if you can, someone along those lines, that makes this team really formidable, like San Francisco is, where you're like, God, we just can't score against them. What would be wrong with that? What would be wrong with this ultimately, for ever since Jerry's been here, sexy fucking football team being a defense-first football team? Nothing. So choose a cornerback, choose a defensive tackle, choose a linebacker, or choose an offensive tackle, because that's job number 2. Run the football better. They ran it much better this year. It kind of clunked at the end, and now Pollard is hurt. All those conversations will be had in the next show. Paying Pollard, if someone offers him $8, $10, $12 million, which they may, coming off 1,350 yards and 10 touchdowns, and everybody eye-opening over Pollard who hadn't watched him, saying, oh my God, he's shot out of a cannon. He breaks tackles, not because he's ultimately that strong, but because he hits the hole so fast, people are getting a hand on him but not bringing him down. He's great. You do not pay a running back going into his 5th year, I don't care how few carries he has, unless it's really reasonable, and it ain't going to be. Stud defender, a stud offensive lineman, whatever it takes. Now, here's what you do at wide receiver. Again, more on this next Wednesday and Friday. You trade for DeAndre Hopkins of Arizona. Some of you may be saying, shut up, he's old. He is old, but he runs great routes, and he never drops the football. And he is a competitor of the highest degree. And what Dak Prescott needs, besides CeeDee Lamb, is other wide receivers who run the right route, who catch the damn ball. I don't know what's going on with Michael Gallup. I don't know why you necessarily paid up front for a guy who was coming off an ACL injury when you look back at his history, and he had a problem with it in high school. He had a problem with it at junior college before he ended up at Colorado State. And he's had a problem with it here. Michael Gallup has sort of been the injured player. And yet I love him. I did podcasts with him. I talked to him. If you talk to Michael Gallup, you would love him. He is hat in hand. He is confident yet kind. Michael Gallup's freaking phenomenal, but he may not be an NFL football player that deserves $10 million a year. Or maybe it just takes him longer to heal and he'll be much better next year, but I hope we don't sit on that premise. He's going to be here. You need somebody else. So DeAndre Hopkins will be due, as I understand it, about $18 million a year for the next 2 years. Listen, top wide receivers now are going to be at $30, $32 million. 18, good enough. Sold. Make a trade for him. Hopefully you don't pay too much. Or the free agent that I kind of like is Jacoby Myers of the Patriots, who continue to get better and better and better. He's tall, he's strong, he runs good routes, and he's pretty damn fast. 67 catches, 804 yards, and 6 touchdowns. And you may say, meh, Mac Jones was his quarterback. Bill Belichick was his head coach. They had no fucking chance for him to have a 1,200-yard season. It doesn't happen. Wasn't going to happen with that quarterback or that coach. Jacoby Myers has now ascended to being a borderline lower level, number one, can probably get him for 3 years and $45 million. You can be out of it in 2, roughly $17 million a year. If that's the case, those are 2 suggestions. DeAndre Hopkins in a trade, Jacoby Myers as a free agent. There will be more. In the draft, no Bijan Robinson, please. Running back Kenny McIntosh of Georgia is a beast. I'll choose anyone from Georgia or Alabama, won't you? Choose him. Choose him. Put him in a running system. That kid is big and strong and fast. He'll grow in round 3 or 4. At least my early estimates are that. Good. Fine with that. Defenders, offensive linemen, a running back in round 3 or 4. Figure out the wide receiver thing in free agency or whatever else, because this is not going to be an offense first operation next year. It's going to be a defense first and running operation. That's the only way you make Dak Prescott as good as he can possibly be. Here are the free agents for the Cowboys, and you sort of can mull this over. Anthony Brown, cornerback. He'll be 30, coming off an injury. Many of you have disrespected Anthony Brown's career the entire time he's been here, but to be honest with you, he's been very dependable. He's been a good player on this team. I doubt they re-sign. Donovan Wilson, the safety, is a missile. They're re-signing him. 98 tackles, an interception, 2 forced fumbles, and a presence. And the 3 safeties on this team all need to stay. They are keys to what this team is doing. Defensive end Dante Fowler had 6 sacks. I'm good with that. If Dante Fowler come back for a right price, Dante Fowler was impactful, and I want guys coming back on this team who understand Dan Quinn so they can continue to make the defense even better. They can continue to add more wrinkles that make it tougher for offenses. Jonathan Hankins came in a very unheralded trade from Oakland. He was good. If Jonathan Hankins is the right price, you need huge, fat, strong guys in the middle to slow the run down. Carlos Watkins played 12 games, had 0 sacks. That's fine. Leighton Vander Esch. I starred this one. 90 tackles, played the entire season, had a sack, had a forced fumble, and got everyone in the right position. I think he missed 1 game, and it was a big deal when he was gone. So I don't know what he's going to get paid. Yes, he still has the stinger neck back issue, had it all the way back since high school, but it didn't jump up this year. And if it's a reasonable price, Leighton Vander Esch was a very good linebacker this year that I'd like to see come back, who seems to have a complete grasp of Dan Quinn's defense and what he is expected to do, and make sure everybody else does. Thumbs up on Leighton Vander Esch. Also thumbs up on Connor McGovern. Plays center, plays guard, is available, and is a pretty good player. Connor McGovern's good. That's a player you want back. Jason Peters will be 42. I think I liked his impact this year, but 42 and physically probably not doing great. Tony Pollard, 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns rushing, 371 yards receiving, 1,387 and 12 touchdowns. Probably going to get $8, $10, or $12 million. I have a feeling they're not going to pay that number. I know Jerry loves him. We all love him. But that's a dicey injury. That's a high ankle sprain combo with a tibia surgery. It was a different surgery. I can't remember what they called it, a straight line surgery. So it doesn't have screws and things in it. Maybe that's less dramatic on his recovery. Still only 25 years old. He'll be 26 next year. Have a feeling that Pollard's not coming back. Dalton Schultz in 13 games, 577 yards, 5 touchdowns. But you saw in big games how important Dalton Schultz is to Dak Prescott. Maybe Jake Ferguson can be that guy and can be a little bit bigger and better blocker. Peyton Hendershot, both those guys were somewhat effective. Schultz probably doesn't come back. Back to the coaches. McCarthy is the head coach. He's going to be here for a long time. He has a great relationship with not only this team, with everyone in that building. Parcells was not in that building, but he was in Valley Ranch, was a miserable son of a bitch. And while he was a great player, he made everyone in the building and everyone around him miserable. And in the end, that wears out. So he wore out. They wore out. He came 5 years. He had an incredible impact on this team while he was here with an average team, but he was gone. Jason Garrett stayed way too long because he was a steady, consistent, smart man who's a friend of the family. And maybe not everybody will meld with the Jones family and understand how to be able to coach it and deal with all that shit, so they kept him too long. Mike McCarthy has a lot of similarities to Jason Garrett with his even temper, with his heartbeat that at least outwardly is slow and that he's in charge of things. He's even better at getting the players to like him. I think the players felt a lot like you and I did, that while Garrett was smart and the nicest guy in the world, the clapping, et cetera, young people sort of checked out probably 3 years earlier on Jason Garrett. Not the case with Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy is a big, strong, strapping son of a bitch who's coached football for a long time and who ultimately, from the player's point of view, falls on the sword for them all the time. You will hear him say, I have the utmost confidence in that quarterback. I can't wait to go back to war with that quarterback or that running back or that left tackle or whoever it may be. Mike McCarthy does those things, as Charles Barkley once told me, that players love, that get players to play hard for them. Coaches have to do that thing or those things. McCarthy does those things. Dan Quinn coming back is great news. I think maybe Dan Quinn has gotten to the point where he's been here long enough. He believes this thing has a chance, and maybe the need to be head coach has sort of gone on. Or is there a little backdoor wink and a pat and a smack on the ass from Jerry that says, I'll pay the same amount he's making, and if he turds it, you can have the job next year or the year after that? I don't know. I know that Mike McCarthy essentially will be a 2024 decision unless they've extended him before then. New offensive coordinator, I would vote, would be Mike McCarthy. He will be more conservative. He will be more physical. They will run the ball more often, and this will not be a pass-first operation. He loves Dak. Therefore, he's going to do a better job of putting Dak in winning positions. It's not a winning position when you can't run the football. It's not a winning position with this boring pastry offense that scores so many points somehow. Everybody knows where everybody's going to be. More motion, more movement, more running. Mike McCarthy needs to be the offensive coordinator. And if you need a different voice for him as QB coach, Doug Nussmeier can go and be the tight ends coach, which he's been before. Find me somebody else. Dak has a personal coach. His name is John Beck. Played in the NFL for 2 or 3 teams and in the CFL, and Dak likes him. He resonates with him. But let's be honest. Do any of us think Dak has gotten a lot better since his rookie year, since his second year? He hasn't. He suffered a catastrophic knee injury. He's fought his way through that. He's a leader. He's a great young man. You want to have him over for dinner. You want him to date your daughter. You want him to help you change a tire on the street, all of the above. He hasn't gotten better at reading defenses, slowing his brain down, taking what the defense gives, knowing where his checkdowns are, and ultimately being able to perform in the biggest of big moments. And I don't think it's all his fault. They have to help him. Maybe a different voice. 30% of this team will be gone. That's what happens in an NFL season. You say reboot, rebuild. 30% of this team will be gone. But when you come back next year and you still have Micah and Tank and Dorrance, I'm putting Dorrance up there as a really good player, and Diggs, who I think was bad this year, but is ultimately a really good potential superstar player, and Curse and Hooker and Donovan Wilson on defense. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 really, really good players that understand the absolute base of your defense, the theoretical reasons that they do everything they do. That's going to be another good defense, and you have your defensive coordinator back. On offense, you've got Dak, CD, Zach Martin, probably the best right guard to ever play football. Tyron Smith maybe comes back, maybe doesn't, but we know he has the right disposition. Tyler Smith was much better than advertised, and I firmly believe is on his way to being a Pro Bowl left tackle. Thumbs up. That's a lot of really good players that return. 12 more wins next year? Maybe. The schedule will be tough. The Eagles will be tough. The division will be tough. But the Cowboys are a good team. They'll get to double-digit wins again next year. They'll make the playoffs again next year. By the way, they never lost 2 straight games this year. There's something to that. Mike McCarthy, in his tenure with Dallas, is 8-1 in what you call bounce-back games. It's great statistics everywhere. It's a reload. It's a better defense first operation. It's a better running back, and you come back. Lots more on this. Draft and go, Super Bowl or bust for the next 2 or 3 years. The culture here is tough and is strong and probably is as good as it's been in a long, long time, maybe all the way back to the 90s. Next week, Wednesday, we'll get deeper into this draft. We'll get deeper into free agent possibilities, and we will probably know the entire coaching situation. We may not know the running back coach, but we'll know that Kellen Moore probably isn't staying. We'll know it's McCarthy and Quinn, and we have some other coaches to bring in and fix, but we'll do all that on Wednesday. I had a great time with you. Hope you enjoyed the show. It was a good season. The season was lost in week number 1. It really was. It was lost in week number 1, and the head coach and the defensive coordinator and the offensive coordinator came along, and this thing got turned around. The ship got righted. Don't forget all that. Don't forget that all of us had given up on this season the minute Dak was out in week number 1. Done. And this coaching staff and the leaders on this team picked this team up. It was a good season. It was a good season. And don't be embarrassed by what happened at the end of the San Francisco game. Who gives a shit? With 45 seconds and 97 yards to go, you weren't scoring a touchdown. You weren't. Against San Francisco? You weren't. That thing doesn't even matter. What matters is the clunker at 3:05 with 2 timeouts and a 2-minute warning when the team, the offensive coordinator, the head coach, and the quarterback needed to go on a drive. Even from the 3, it was a 4-play drive. Do not have in the back of your mind you can punt the football and maybe get it back with a minute left. Dumb shit. But I do love this team. I've enjoyed talking to you, and I'll be back 2 times next week, Wednesday night and probably Friday sometime in the morning. I'm Brady Tinker for Off of the Helmets right here, courtesy of East Coast Sports Investors. Have a good weekend. Enjoy the weekend. These are going to be 2 really good games.